Welcome to Northwest Aerospace News Live. I am Jennifer Ferrero, a writer for the magazine and your host. Thank you to our sponsor, Impact Washington. Today's episode, we are talking with Sarah Massie of Massie Consulting. Her services include export consulting and creating customized compliance and ITAR programs. Sarah also trains companies to navigate complicated U.S. trade regulations. Let's welcome today's guest, Sarah. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very pleased to be here.
Sarah, thank you for coming to the show. And you are a current advertiser in Northwest Aerospace News, and we appreciate you. Sarah, I'd like to know more about export compliance for the aerospace industry. But first, how long have you been doing this work, and how did you develop this focus?
My journey into the international world started many moons ago. After high school, I did a foreign exchange program to Panama. I came home jazzed about the international world, even considered becoming an ambassador until I realized I didn't want to get into politics, and I found business. And so I majored in international business, and I've been going strong ever since. I went after college to work for a private company doing international sales and traveling for them and working with their distributors internationally. And then after that, I landed myself at the Idaho Department of Commerce. And I was with them for 7 years doing assistance with connecting companies with international partners. We organized international trade shows, trade missions led by the governor, and a lot of education process along the way. And it was during that time that I realized that there was a gap in export compliance, knowledge for companies, as well as who can help. And so a lot of times you just don't know what you don't know. And every company started feeling like that more and more. And at the Department of Commerce, we were able to connect them with some resources and guidelines, but companies just lack the time to be able to really dig into it. And so that's when I launched my own business to get into that niche for them to help a company really jumpstart their program. Because like I said, you just don't know what you don't know.
What types of manufacturers, including size of company and maturity, can benefit from exporting their products? And why is it a good strategy to consider?
Well, honestly, any size company can benefit from exporting. 96% of the world's population is outside of the US. 2/3 of the world's buying power is outside of the US. And according to the SBA, 97% of all US exporters are small businesses. And so it doesn't matter how large or small you are, you're able to diversify your revenue sources when you have an additional market or multiple additional markets. You can also lengthen the product lifespan because in the US, your product might become a little bit less high tech and companies are moving beyond that. But that doesn't mean that your product isn't the high tech still in another country. So you can really diversify those opportunities. And then once you're exporting, it really gives you some amazing opportunities and to really just grow. Domestic companies do better, they stay stronger, they ultimately pay higher wages traditionally than companies that don't export. Of course, there are considerations to think about when you're exporting. You know, what adjustments do you need to make to your product? What types of languages, all of those different kinds of things. And our company does have a checklist that we're able to offer to companies for just what do you need to look at? What do you need to check when you're looking at creating an export plan? Whether you're an experienced exporter or even a brand new exporter, the checklist can help. So that's a great one.
To go ahead and consider exporting. Now, are you able to help customers worldwide, or do you have a specialization in certain countries?
So my specialty is with US companies that are exporting their products. So it doesn't matter where in the world it is that you are going to go. You can go to Canada or Mexico, Australia, the Philippines, Russia. Everything can be complicated in one way or another. But it doesn't matter for my services whether you are exporting to any of those countries in particular, because my specialty is to help you follow the rules and regulations from the US. And so there's specific processes that you can go to follow. What lists are you checking, to make sure you're shipping to the right people, or you're not shipping to someone on the wrong list, or a country that you're not supposed to ship to, things like that. So all of those processes are the same regardless of what country you're shipping to. And so it's an amazing opportunity to get this program into place, to be able to kind of, the world becomes your oyster.
Well, let's talk about your services in detail. Specifically, can you address regulatory compliance and comprehensive education in international trade? And what's most important to your customers in that realm?
Right. Like I said, you don't know what you don't know. And so it's a constantly moving product. And so what I do, my main specialty, is assisting companies to create those pesky processes and protocols that keep your executives out of jail. Because the problem today is that while you're expanding your sales internationally, or if you're expanding into handling ITAR products, even just domestically, you still have to follow the rules and regulations set out for those items. And so you can be fined up to $1.2 million, ka-ching, or even sent to prison for export violations. And so that's where my company comes in with 3 key strategies to assist with that process. And the first one is making sure that your classification codes are correct for exporting, because that can affect different tariffs and things like that as well. And it also helps you know who you can ship to and who you can't ship to. And the second one is to create those written processes and protocols, like I said, those pesky ones that nobody likes to write down. And so both agencies that handle export compliance, whether it's ITAR or just everything else, they both want to see written processes and protocols, because that way your employees know what to do. They know what processes they're supposed to do. They know what documents to keep. They know where to keep them. They know how long to keep them, and all of those things like that. And so they really want it written down as a resource to your staff and to new people that come on as a training mechanism as well. And it keeps that knowledge from walking out the door. The amount of companies that I've met that say, oh yeah, we had one person that handled that and they just left. And they took all of that knowledge with them. And so getting that written down really does help. And then the third strategy is in that training process. And so having the trainings available for all employees so that they make sure that they understand what is export compliance, why it is important, and then what does it mean to them? Because that's always the question, right? What does that mean to me? And so having a program of some tiered training options for those with all levels, as well as those that are more detailed for the people that actually handle those exports. And so my customers find really kind of the most important thing is that they have buy-in from everybody top to bottom. Because obviously you need the top executives on board because they're the ones that get to push the program. But you also need all your production workers and everybody to understand the importance of it. Otherwise, you have those weak links that can slip up and you miss and you have a violation. And we don't want that.
Right. Boy, there just are so many important factors here, Sarah. And it sounds like you really can't lose with this. It sounds like there's a lot of good reasons to do this. Well, how do manufacturers find you, and what does the onboarding process look like?
Well, a lot of companies right now find me through referrals. And so whether it's another company that I've been working with or the agencies that I work with, such as the Idaho Department of Commerce and some other agencies, Idaho Manufacturing Alliance, and I'm working with some guys in Montana and things like that as well. I also attend events because a lot of times companies don't necessarily come looking for me. And so a lot of my process is education. And because again, they don't know what they don't know. Or if they started handling it, they realized that they thought that they had it all under control until I ask them a few pointed questions. And then they realize they might need to reconsider, maybe revamp their program a bit, kind of go back and look at things again. And so I do outreach, such as the I-90 Aerospace Corridor Conference and Expo. I was at that this year. And then I was actually just recently at the Paris Air Show as well, talking to the companies in the US Pavilion. And so, yeah, when companies start exporting, they know that they need assistance. And when companies want to launch from regular products into ITAR products, that International Traffic in Arms Regulations. They usually know that they need some assistance, and so they'll come looking for me as well. And then when it comes to onboarding, I do a consultative conversation first. I talk to a company to find out, where are they at, what are their needs, understand what processes they might already have, and discover where the gaps are. I've also developed a really strong questionnaire when I bring a company on board to create that full written compliance program for them, so that they can really just walk through all the different kinds of questions and topics that we need to cover, and also understand what process they already have that I need to meld into it, or where I need to go and create those programs for them. And usually those programs involve a training aspect as well, again, so that the whole company has the buy-in. And so there's two different parts. One is the written part, and then the other is the training. And a company can start with either one. If they really want to get going on the training, we can start there. Some companies want to have the program in their hands prior to having a training. And so it works either direction.
Well, it sounds like you make it easy and less intimidating for a company to go ahead and start exporting. So that's really exciting to hear. Well, what's a good story where you solved a problem for a customer that saved them time and money and helped them accomplish goals in this area?
Right. So I think that the biggest one is with a company that came to me because they were really struggling. They were exporting, but they were struggling with knowing the classifications. They were out doing research and trying to find out how to make sure they complied with things. So they were really trying to do the right things, but told me they spent about a year really trying to get a handle on all of it, and just realized that they were falling short. And so I really have walked them through that process, did a training, created that full export compliance program for them, so that they have that in writing, again, to really just jumpstart that program for them. So instead of spending all that time and energy additionally trying to create their own program, because it can take hundreds of hours, honestly, to really build a right program. And so I was able to save them any additional time and effort that they needed to put into that, to make sure that they got that on the ground and didn't get fines on top of it.
Great. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I've got a couple of quotes that I think are key in this kind of aspect. One is from former U.S. Deputy Attorney General Paul McNulty, and he said, "The cost of compliance is great. If you think I messed it up. Sorry, the cost of non-compliance is great." He said, "If you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance, because that's where those violations kick in." And then the other quote I have is actually from Warren Buffett. It says, "It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. So if you think about that, you'll do things differently." And I like that one. Again, when it comes to violations, it's like, don't let your company name or your executives get splashed in the paper for the wrong reasons. You just want to do it right from the beginning.
Good point. Sarah, thank you so much for coming to the show today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, if you're interested in learning more about Sarah's business, visit smassie.com. And thank you to our sponsor, Impact Washington. Until next time, keep engaging with the manufacturing and aerospace news you need to know in the Northwest with Northwest Aerospace News Magazine. Goodbye.